Oh boy, Harman Smith has gotten big delusional once again, thinking that we all hate the reveal of the new Switch 2. Let's find out.
It really needs to be more well understood among the gaming community that every Nintendo console is received this way.
The only thing that needs to be well understood is you need to pick a struggle, okay? How can you sit there and have that big ass of a forehead and sat there and have a receding hairline? Pick a struggle already, Harman. And not everybody hates the Nintendo console. Get over that.
Every single one is attacked. YouTubers make up claims about the console. Journos run stories that are completely untrue. This is very much par for the course. This is the exact same thing we saw when the Switch was first unveiled, when the Wii U was first unveiled, when the 3DS, with the Wii, GameCube, DS. Like, the list goes on and on and on, right?
Those things were not hated like you think they are. But whenever someone sits there and says they prefer something else, you sit there and take that as a personal attack against Nintendo, that they have like this big conspiracy theory to take down Nintendo.
We cannot trust YouTubers to give an accurate assessment on Nintendo hardware. This has been a thing for a long time, and you can kind of see that now.
Oh, just like we can never sit there and take your criticism completely true. Half the time you're incorrect about the old Nintendo hardware that you love so much.
With the Switch 2, with like how the vast majority of people in the sphere, people like Stuttering Craig, people like Oh No It's Alex, countless other like nobody YouTubers and e-celebs are all not Asmongold.
Sir, put some respect on Alexander the Great's name. You will never speak bad about Oh No It's Alex again.
Moist Critical, these guys are like making their videos like, hi guys, Nintendo sure dropped the ball, huh? It's just completely at odds with the reality of the situation. Is that
the only thing here at odds for the reality of the situation is how big your forehead is. And yes, Nintendo did drop the ball. I guarantee you, Nintendo would make far more money if they weren't doing these anti-consumer practices right now.
In that Nintendo Switch 2 was clearly very well received. It clearly is at a very affordable price point.
The hell it is. Yes, in Japan it is at a reasonable price point. Here in America, no, it's not. In Japan, you get it for $330. Here we get it for $450.
It clearly has a wide range of titles available at launch. It is clearly...
Most of those titles are reports from the Switch 1 and a lot of reports of third-party games.
Going to do very well. Right now, we're in that initial denial period just before the console comes out, where people genuinely are taking the last possible opportunity to damage control and just whine about the console in hopes that something sticks.
Well, what we're hoping about is that they'll sit there and lower the price of the console and the game itself,
in hopes that someone is going to take what they say seriously. And it couldn't be more obvious at this stage that the people primarily complaining about the Switch 2 are people that never had any intention of supporting the hardware anyway.
You are correct. A lot of people did not want to sit there and play the Switch 2, but you need to understand, if you accept these price points, it affects the rest of the industry.
Or are people just actively grifting and will pick it up on day one? I think if you're engaged enough with Nintendo hardware to watch a Nintendo Direct as it airs, yeah, you are going to be picking up the hardware.
Well, we know Dreamcast guy is, even though he sat there and, from what I heard, he complained about the Switch 2 and still begged people to give him a pre-order. Like I said, I heard.
It's just amusing to kind of see these people attempt to manipulate reality, where the Steam Deck is seen as an actual viable competitor to the Switch.
Valve never tried to compete with Nintendo. Only in your mind was this ever a threat to Nintendo. Even you got scared. All you damn Switch people were real scared of the Steam Deck. You just won't admit it.
That's one of the amusing things about this, is that you have people who genuinely think the Steam Deck was successful when in reality it couldn't even compete with the Wii U, right?
Well, let's break this down. The Steam Deck has sold what? I think 5 million units. The Wii U sold about 15 million units. Well, all a Steam Deck is a portable PC. So when you look at Everyone likes to sit there and say that the Switch is a hybrid, so then you sit there and it's like, okay, well, the Switch Lite isn't a hybrid, it's nothing more than a handheld, so it's the handheld version of the Switch. So in a way, look at all the PCs that have been sold to be able to play Steam games, and it probably has every Nintendo combined beat.
Like, again, nothing about this situation is odd or unusual. Like, if anything, I think this is an unusually tame Nintendo reveal, considering, like, the history of this kind of stuff and just how often, these kind of statements get taken as gospel. The thing that really sticks out to me about this period in the Switch 2's life cycle is that, like, a lot of the narratives that are being put out there, that are being, like, that people are complaining about, that they're, like, aggressively bringing up near constantly, a lot of this stuff has already been proven to not be true. I think the $90 games thing is one such example.
Have you forgotten taxes, Harman? Let alone, if you want the full experience of Breath of the Wild is 90, I believe Tears of the Kingdom might be 90. But when you look at an $8 game and you add the taxes, that's going to be what, 88, almost $90.
But you also have, like, people complaining about, like, the way the game keys work, about third-party games on Switch, about frame rates, about horsepower. Like, you have people coping and seething about a console that's clearly competing with the PS5 and the Xbox One spec-wise.
My guy, you are an idiot. It doesn't compete with the PS5 spec-wise. It barely competes with the PS4 Pro spec-wise. What are you talking about?
It does need to be acknowledged at this point that the industry is running scared of Nintendo. They don't like the fact that Nintendo has survived
No one is running scared. Only you think that in your mind.
the PlayStation era and has reached the point where they're essentially in control of the entire market. PlayStation and Xbox are on the way out. PC gaming was never relevant. Mobile is in a completely different section.
Sony is not on the way out. You do realize the company of Sony is worth way more money than Nintendo, right?
Sector. It doesn't compete with gaming at all. Like, Nintendo essentially dominates the hardcore gaming space, and there's this very stubborn refusal.
What hardcore games are on the Switch? Please explain to me. What, you got Mario and Luigi Brothers Ship, Princess Peach Showtime, you got Captain Toad Tracker. What hardcore games do they really have on the Switch?
Among certain people to acknowledge or admit it. So what this means is that we constantly see these kinds of controversies come up. Last year we had to deal with people spurging out about games like Princess Peach Showtime and Mario and Luigi Brothers Ship, both of which were great.
How did I know he was going to bring those up? But he hasn't brought up Princess Peach Showtime in a while. But honestly, I swear I did not watch this video before I reacted. This is my first time.
And the year before that, we saw people trying to gaslight us into thinking that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and Super Mario Bros. Wonder were bombs.
No one said that they were bombs, but in your eyes, because they didn't win Game of the Year, in your eyes, you consider them bombs. They're not bombs.
Like, again, it's just so laughably out of touch with the reality of the situation that you really can't take it seriously. And I do think this is my official stance on the matter, like right now, is that you simply can't take complaints about Nintendo Switch 2 seriously. This thing is going to do well. People are going to play it. Kids are going to play it.
We all know that kids are going to play it. The majority of the people that are going to buy this system is going to be children. I'm glad you finally accept this, Harman.
This idea that, like, Nintendo is magically going to drop the ball and is just going to lose all the goodwill they've built up over the past 40 years is just...
Really, goodwill, huh? Do they sit there and have goodwill for the Wii U? I don't think that was I don't think they garnered goodwill during that time.
Laughably off base. People keep bringing up, like, lower sales of past Nintendo consoles without bringing up why those Nintendo consoles did worse. And that was because those were the consoles that had stiffer competition.
Yes, very true. The N64 got its ass whooped on the PS1, and the GameCube got its ass whooped on the PS2, and the Wii U, honestly, got its ass whooped by the PS4, and honestly just whooped its own ass.
Right? And, considering Nintendo has beaten their competition at this point, that clearly is going to be a factor in how Nintendo Switch 2 performs and how this generation will...
Harman, the Switch 1 had no competition. There was no other handheld. Towards the end, yeah, they sit there and the Steam Deck came out, but the Steam Deck was never trying to compete with the Switch. And I still stand by what I say. I bet that most of the people that bought a Steam Deck were probably Switch people that wanted to play big boy games.
Will continue. And I do think that
Well, it's a good thing you don't get paid to think.
people don't acknowledge this at all, but no matter how well the Nintendo Switch 2 does, no, even if it bombs, all Nintendo would have to do was keep continuing to support the Switch 1 and then put out another piece of hardware.
If the Switch 2 bombs and there's nothing they can do for the Switch 1, the Switch 1 can't handle better games than what it's already getting. Look at the new Pokemon game. It looks like garbage on the Switch 1.
They are not in a position where something like that is going to damage them long term or ruin their brand. I think we can safely say after the Wii U that a console that underperforms is not going to destroy their brand.
Harman, let's be correct. The Wii U wasn't underperformed, it was a failure.
Or make them irrelevant. If anything, I would say the exact opposite. Because if you look at how people are generally exposed to Nintendo games, a lot of them are playing games that are older and are on a different piece of hardware.
Yes, you are correct. You want to know what that hardware is? Starts with the 7 C's.
This idea that the brand is just going to disappear if the Switch 2 underperforms is just laughably off base and honestly kind of insane if you think about it for even 3 seconds. At this point, we really do need to start acknowledging that the people who complain about everything Nintendo does.
Harman, you're the biggest complainer we've ever met. You're the only one on here that's really complaining. We are doing criticisms, trying to make Nintendo better so the gaming industry gets better.
Are boomers. They're complete out of touch 40-year-old retards who spend way more time on the internet complaining about games than actually playing them. They are completely out of touch with what Nintendo is putting out, what Nintendo is doing with their hardware, and just live in this fantasy reality where
Harman. You have no room to talk and complain about someone else living in a fantasy reality.
Nintendo is just this perpetually declining brand. They are completely unwilling to acknowledge just how popular this company actually is. And I think they are going to be positively shocked by how well it does in the very near future. We are going to see.
Yeah, with how things are going, I don't think anybody's going to be positively about anything towards Nintendo. But they will be shocked. You are correct.
I believe the Nintendo Switch 2 outperformed the Steam Deck in less than a couple of months. I've seen people speculate day one. I'm not sure if it's possible for that to happen, considering these things need to get to homes and stuff like that.
Wow, Harman actually using some common sense for once. I think he's learning from us, guys.
But I do think that it's definitely going to happen within the first year. First 6 months. There is no real competition for Switch 2. The games look great. The price point is reasonable. Everybody's happy. What exactly are you complaining about?
Oh, trust me, Harman, if the rumors are true, which you better hope the rumors are not true, there will be. I promise you on that one. Well, that's it for my reaction. Let me know down in the comments if you agree with me or not. Remember, men, to always wrap it up so you don't have to produce another Harman Smith. And please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay vigilant.